So I'm going to take a little poll, survey. How many of you worried about something this last week? Anybody here worry about anything this last week? Wow, we're in good company here, aren't we? Right? All of us in this room, in one time or another, we have worried about something. Right? And so we're going to talk about this kind of clutter tonight. This clutter is kind of hidden and wrapped around a couple other pieces of clutter, like fear and manipulation and those kind of things. And yet this kind of clutter, what this does in our lives, this kind of clutter actually reveals where we're really putting our trust in vivid color. And of course, we're going to talk about worry. We're going to talk about worry tonight, all right? And so just to let you know, this whole aspect of worry has been incredibly raw for me at different times in my life. In fact, I saved a list of the things that I was actually worried about when we started TNC. There was a lot. In fact, that first year, I'm just going to read for you some of the things that were on my list. Okay, one is whether or not we were going to sell our house. Because we hadn't moved here yet, and we had to sell our house. So I didn't know if we were going to be able to sell our house or not. The next thing was the people that were buying our house, they were buying an online contract. So I was kind of worried about whether or not they were going to fulfill their obligation. There was the guy named Jim that was hanging around our ministry, and he needed a place to live. So I was worried about where's Jim going to end up? Where's he going to live? Our youngest daughter, Hannah, was raising some money so that she could go on a mission trip thing to Africa. So I was worried about whether or not she was going to be able to raise the rest of her money to go to Africa. I was worried about whether or not we were going to be able to move Kelly's sister. I was going to be able to move Kelly's sister from Florida to Alabama and still be back on time for church. I was worried about if we were going to be able to raise $25,000 by the end of June. I was worried about, well, are we going to have enough in the offering to pay bills this week? I was worried that this whole thing was going to blow up in my face. I was worried about how are we going to pay for a new furnace, because at this point our furnace had gone out. And we had space heaters right here on the stage. I was worried if we were going to be able to renovate the parsonage in time for us to move in right next door. I was worried about how we were going to sustain Rahab's house and the medical clinic and the vocational center over the long haul. I was worried about how we were going to get the vocational center renovated, which is where the plank factory is right now. I was worried about, are we going to have enough volunteers to run Rahab's house and the medical clinic and the vocational center? I was worried about, are we going to have the finances for us to last another year? I could go on and on. And I'm sure if you had time, you could start coming up with a list. All of us have had these worries at different times in our lives. Or maybe you've been around somebody that's a classic worrier. Have you been around somebody that's a classic worrier? Right? Every single time, okay? So I'm going to tell you some truths about worriers. Okay? Here's some truths about worrier. The first truth is, worriers live in the future. Worriers live in the future. So let's say that your life is on a timeline. Let's just say there's a timeline, right? So there is past, present, future. Okay, there's the timeline. Past, present, future. Okay? So worry has a close cousin called fear. Okay? So where do you think worry and fear on this timeline spends most of its time? Future. Right? That's where it lives, is in the future. Okay? Right? Okay. Worriers see the future in minute, gory details. Like if you've ever been around a worrier, they can tell you, it's like magic. They can tell you, like in details, on what it is going to be like. Think about when you were really worried about something and you've imagined all sorts of things, right? That could happen. It's like it's being a visionary without optimism. Okay? Like you just see the future, think about the future. Okay, so that kind of happened to me like a couple different ways. Like when my girls were growing up, you know, and they were teenagers and they would go out and do stuff or whatever, right? And they had a curfew. Well, if they were missing the curfew, I became a worrier. And all of these things started going through my mind, right? Everything, right? Car accidents and abductions and, you know, emergency room calls. All of that stuff was taking place, right, inside my brain when that was taking place, okay? Years ago, I was, when I was on staff in another church or whatever, I started to have these throat issues. And I was starting to lose my voice, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and I was really worried about it. And I had all of these, just thinking about all these different scenarios, what it was. And I'm a researcher, which is really a detrimental thing to be. It's not a good thing to try to research. It's just not. Ignorance is bliss. So it just is. Right? So I started researching all these things and imagining I had all these things. And so I went for all of these tests. Like spent thousands of dollars, all these tests, putting scope down my thing, drinking this stuff, taking x-rays, watching me swallow, all of this stuff, right? To do this, whatever. After all of that, the doctor said, you need to drink more water. Okay. But I was thinking all of these other things, right? So worriers see the future in minute, gory details. Worriers are also false prophets. Worriers are false prophets. If everything we worry about came true, it would suck. Yeah. That would be awful, right? Yeah. Right? So in the Bible, like a prophet, like if you were a true prophet, every single thing you said has to be 100% true. If one thing did not come true that you prophesied over, you were considered a false prophet. Okay? One thing. Okay? But then there are those professional worriers. Have you ever been around a professional worrier? Okay, a professional worrier does what they do is they worry about everything. So when something does happen, like 15 years later, they're going to go, I told you so! I told you that was going to happen. Right? I told you. Right? And then worriers are immune to reason. Do you ever try to talk with somebody that's just worried about something and you try to encourage them and they just will not receive it? Have you been worried about something and you've had somebody talk to you to try to encourage you and sometimes there's this wall and you're like, like when you're thick in the worry forest, it is hard to see the forest from the trees, isn't it, right? Because you're so thick in it. No amount of convincing is going to have you think otherwise. So let me ask you a question tonight, okay? since we all do it. Is worry a sin? Is worry a sin? Or is it just one of those nutty things, that we do as human beings that we end up confessing to God? God, I did it again. Oh, when am I going to learn to trust you? When am I going to learn, right? Right? Or is worry something deeper than that? Because at the core of our worry, there are some very intense conclusions that we're making. Okay? First conclusion is that there is no one that can really help me. Second conclusion is there is no one who can rescue me. Third is there is no one looking out for me. And the fourth one is I am alone in a world that operates according to chance. That's kind of like, these are those conclusions that we come to when we're in the midst of fighting that worry monster, right? Do you know that I think God expects us to worry? I think he knows we're going to worry. Yeah. I do. Yeah. Do you know why? Do you know how many times God says, do not fear in Scripture, in the Bible? 365 times. Yeah. Do not fear. Fear not. 365 times. Wow, that's like one for every day. Right? I think God knows that we're going to struggle with worry and fear. He knows that. Right? Have you ever tried to calm somebody's fears before? Somebody's that scared. Have you actually come alongside of them? Okay, so I want to tell you a story. I've kind of alluded to this story before, but I want to connect it to what we're talking about. Okay, so in 1982, I was on a short-term mission trip to Lake Tahoe, California. That's actually where I met Kelly. Okay, she was from Perrysburg, Ohio. I was from Jamestown, North Dakota. Okay? Which is where, like, what you were experiencing outside right now is nothing compared to North Dakota. Okay, this is balmy compared to North Dakota, okay? And so one of the things that we did was, while we were there, I was the project cook, so I had to cook for 80 people 3 meals a day. That was fun. You don't want to know how emotional people get over food? Oh, Bilbo, oh boy, right? So, but one of the things we got to do was, we got to go to Yosemite National Park. Okay, and we got to climb Half Dome. Okay, I'm going to show you a picture of Half Dome up here. Okay, this is Half Dome. All right. And the hike takes 12 hours to do this hike. In fact, you have to sign a waiver before you do this. In case you die, no one will sue the park. Okay, so you have to sign a waiver before you do this hike. Okay? And so it was on this hike that Kelly and I actually had our first conversation with each other during this hike. And during the hike, okay, so for a lot of the hike, like there are some things going up or whatever, but it takes a while to get to, like, you're actually on the other side of this dome, like on the other side of the dome, right? So to get to the dome. All right, and so the last 400 feet of climbing this, 400 feet, the only thing that you have to hold on to are steel cables and 2x4s pounded into the rock. Okay, I'm going to show you a picture of these cables. Okay, this is actually what it looks like going up. Like Like, it's not like straight up. It's like that. 400 feet. Okay? And just to kind of give you a better idea, I have a picture of, like, it would be climbing the Fifth Third Bank building. This building right here, that's what the last 400 feet is. Like climbing that. Okay? And, okay, so it was here that this whole worry thing started to take control of Kelly. Okay, because when you're on the cable going up, there are people lined up behind. So you're not going back. Because there's only room for one person to go forward. So it was at this time, okay, we were both dehydrated, horribly dehydrated. It was like 98 degrees. And Kelly wasn't doing well. And we started climbing up the cables, and Kelly stopped, and she said, I don't think I'm going to make it. Oh, by the way, this is when I learned that Kelly was a fainter. I didn't know that. She was a fainter, okay? And we have like 20 people behind us, and so there's no turning back. Like if you slip, you die. So we're going up the cable, right? And so, like this ceiling is about 23 feet high, so take that times 20, right? That's how high we're going, all right? So she was like, I don't think I can do this. And I said, I lied. I said, we're almost there. It's fine, okay? So we go about another 10 feet, and she says it again. I don't know that I can do this. I said, hey, it's okay. It's fine. We're almost there. She must have said that 12 times going up there. And I lied every time, right? For us to get up there, okay? And because she had no idea how much farther we had to go. And so we finally got to the top, which is where that dome goes over like that, right? You climb up on the top. Here's the thing I want you to understand about what happened with Kelly. It wasn't my words, don't be afraid, we're almost there, that helped Kelly. No. It was who she turned to when she was afraid. It was like when she felt like she couldn't make it, somehow she knew I was not going to let her fall, no matter what. Okay? So there's this awesome story in the Bible. We're going to look at this story. That really brings home why God wants us to turn to Him when we're worried. And it's this thing that I like to call the manna principle. The manna principle. Okay? So we're going to go to Exodus chapter 16. That's where we're going to hang out. Exodus chapter 16. Okay? And the Bible's full of all kinds of stories. Stories that are meant to be retold over and over and over and over again, because in our fear, we forget. We forget how faithful God can be. And so this story is like a defining moment. It is so important. Like this is one of the stories you need to commit to memory. Is this story right here, because of what it reveals about God in the midst of our worry. Okay? Because there are some truths that you need to understand in the midst of your worry. Okay? Simple, but very profound. Here's the first thing that you need to remember when you're in the midst of your worry, is this, that God hears. God hears. Okay? Like when you're worried, do you ever wonder if God actually hears your cries? Like when you're in your car and you've had it and you are crying out to God, do you ever wonder, is God hearing me right now? Does he hear me when I'm at home and all my kids are in bed and I'm crying, sitting on the side of the bed, not knowing what else to do? Does he hear me? Does he hear me? When you're at the end of your rope, when you're just grumbling or whining or complaining or crying out, okay? We're going to start in verse 1. Listen to this. Exodus 16, starting in verse 1. Then the whole community of Israel set out from Elim and journeyed into the wilderness of Sin, where Elim and Mount Sinai. They arrived there on the 15th day of the second month, 1 month after leaving the land of Egypt. Okay, so 30 days has gone since they all experienced this amazing rescue. They got to experience all of the plagues. They got to experience God parting the Red Sea. They got to experience God closing the Red Sea on the entire Egyptian army. So they got to experience all of these things. 30 days have passed. Verse 2. There too the whole community of Israel complained about Moses and Aaron. Here we go. Verse 3. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted. But now you have brought us into the wilderness to starve us all to death. They had forgotten the fact that they were beaten to a pulp every day as slaves. Whoops, forgot about that part. And then we're going to go to verse 12. Okay, so here they are. They're whining, they're complaining, they're like, this is not going to work. We don't like this. Verse 12. Listen to how God responds. Listen to this. I have heard the Israelites' complaints. Now tell them, in the evening you will have meat to eat, and in the morning you will have all the bread you want. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. Okay, so if you have a Bible, okay, if you're reading this in your Bible, I would circle or underline the words, I have heard. I have heard. Anytime God says, I have heard, watch out, because something is about to happen. He's about to do something. Okay? Because if God heard the cries of the Israelites, he hears your cries. He hears you. Not because of the quality of your prayers, right? Not because you say the right words. He's going to hear you because he is a God who hears. Every time he hears, he acts. Every time. He hears. Okay, so in the midst of our worry, God hears, but God also delivers. He delivers. Okay? The Israelites saw God deliver over and over and over and over again. But when worry takes over, we forget, don't we? We forget. Sometimes I think we're a little too hard on the Israelites. Because we can be the same way. We can be the same way. God prefers the impossible, and so many times he meets our need way before we know we even need it. Okay, so I just want to share with you some times where God met our need here at TNC. Okay, you need to understand, like, I don't know if you knew this or not, but we're a little church. Right? We don't have a big budget. And we do a lot. With the little that we have, we do a lot. Okay? So, just to give you an idea where God has come through for us, we've had to replace all of our furnaces. By the way, we have 4. And all of our air conditioners. Okay? That's probably around $30,000. God provided for that. The Plank Factory building, where the Plank Factory is, okay, not only did we have to raise $31,000 to buy the place, but it cost us almost $250,000 to renovate it. God raised up that. Space for the clinic. I remember when we were trying to figure out where in the heck is the clinic going to go, because we really want to start a free clinic. Connected with the guy from the YMCA, developed a relationship with them. They said, hey, you can put the clinic here where we have the Summit Y. Well, we needed some money to renovate the space. We didn't have the money to renovate the space. It cost about $20,000 to renovate that space. Well, guess what? God raised up that money to do that. The parking lot. I don't know if you knew this or not, but we didn't have a parking lot. Like, there was no place to park here.
All it was grass.
It was. In fact, I couldn't wait until winter got here because people could park on the grass over there. That's what they did. Before any of that happened. Okay. That parking lot cost $70,000.
And a lot of us got played basketball.
Yes. We didn't know how that was going to happen.
No.
You don't think that I worried about some of this stuff? I'm sorry. I'm confessing to you. I did. Siding on that building right there?
Yeah.
We didn't know how we were going to get it sided. Then there was a company, somebody else knew the company, they make siding. They said, well, we're going to donate this to you at an extremely cheap price. And we were able to get all the siding, and this summer, volunteers came in and started putting the siding up. Okay? They're going to do that house this spring. The other building that's right next to that, our next goal is we're going to renovate that other space. Okay? The South Campus that we opened up this last year, guess what? You really think we had money just sitting around for us to open up another campus? No, we didn't. But we knew God called us to do that, so we were going to do it. And guess what? As we've learned before, if it's His will, it's His bill. So we moved forward. And God has been faithful.
Yes, He has.
God delivers. So not only does He hear, not only does He deliver, but God is near. Like He is so close to you. He is so close to you. During this whole time, the Israelites, listen, they knew that God was with them because they had this thing called the pillar of cloud that followed them everywhere they went. At night, it was fire. During the day, it was a cloud. Followed them it was a visual reminder to them that God was with them everywhere. God, like when you're in the midst of worry, God wants you to know, I am closer than the air you breathe. I'm there with you. I am there with you. And then God tests us. He tests us. This is that part about worry, I think, that we miss. We miss it. But this is the part that God takes very seriously. And because I think he expects we're going to worry.
Yeah.
But in the midst of our worry is a test.
Yeah.
It's not like get all the question right test. That's not what it's like. It's a test more like finding out who the traitors are in your army.
Yeah.
Like it's this thing as far as a test to help go, okay. Because the whole thing with feeding the Israelites, it wasn't about the food. God knew they needed food. In fact, he already had it all figured out. Right? They weren't giving him any new information. We need some food. We're going to die. We need food. God's like, I know. I got this. I got this. Right? No. Listen to what it says why God provided for them. Okay? It wasn't about the food. In Exodus chapter 16, verse 4, listen to what God said to Moses. It says, then the Lord said to Moses, look, I'm going to rain down food from heaven for you. Each day the people will go out, pick up as much food as they need for that day, and I will test them in this to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. And then in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2, listen to this. It says, remember how the Lord your God led you through the wilderness for those 40 years, humbling you, testing you to prove your character, and to find out whether or not you would obey his commands. So God was testing. He was going to provide for them. He knew he was. Okay, so through all of this, there's this thing called the manna principle. Okay, the manna principle. Here it is. There's only two parts to this. When you're in the midst of worry, two parts. Here we go. Part number one is this. I need to refocus on the one who really hears and cares and provides. When I'm in the midst of my worry, that's my opportunity to refocus on the one who hears and cares and provides. I need to refocus. Okay? And then the second part, first part is refocus. And then listen to this second part. Exodus 16, starting in verse 16. He says this, these are the Lord's instructions. Each household should gather as much as it needs. Pick up 2 cords for each person in your tent. So the people of Israel did as they were told. They gathered a lot, some only a little. But when they measured it out, everyone had just enough. Those who gathered a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. So it didn't matter. Each family had just what it needed. Then Moses told them, do not keep any of it until morning. Okay, so here we go. Okay, now listen to this. This is important here. This is God's plan for us our whole lives. We need to get this.
Yeah.
This is a lesson he's trying to get us to learn tonight. This is the truth that can change your life with this. Because in our culture, it's all about getting as much as you can.
Yeah.
That's what our culture says.
Yeah.
God knows us so well.
Yeah.
He knows us so well, right? He knows that when we have all we need, our eyes focus on the provision instead of the provider. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that our eyes move back to the provider. They don't move back to our provider until our provision runs out and we go, uh-oh, God help me, right? Because here's what God wanted to help the Israelites understand. This is what I try to get you to understand all the time. This is about a relationship with God. This is a relationship with God. This is about you falling more in love with Jesus. That's what this is about. Okay? When we're in the midst of our worry forest, God is waiting to see if we will turn it over to Him and trust Him to provide for us today. Today. So the first one is refocus on the one who hears and cares and provides. Second part of this principle is, remember, God promises me enough for today alone. Today. Today. Did you have enough for today? Guess what? You can lay your head on the pillow knowing full God met you today. In fact, Jesus said, if you seek my kingdom first and my righteousness, all these things will be added on to you. Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow is going to care for itself. Think about today. What you need today. In fact, some of the Israelites tried to stockpile some of this manna. Do you know that? They did. Some of them were like, oh my gosh, get the bushel baskets out. We're going to fill up a whole bushel full of this stuff. This is going to be awesome. So they wouldn't run out, right? But if they did, the next morning it would be filled with maggots. And it stunk up the whole tent. And so to bring the point home even more, God said, okay, on Saturday, I want you to collect twice as much as you normally do and store it, because on Sunday, I want that to be a day of rest. You don't have to go and do anything, and you'll be provided for. And guess what? That extra stuff that they collected for Sunday, it didn't rot. Because they knew that was coming from God. And I'm trusting in what God says. God wanted to teach the Israelites. He wants to teach us tonight. Teach me today that He promises to meet our needs today. Today. You need to get through the day? God wants to help you get through the day. And I'm going to tell you something. I've had lots of days like that down here at TNC. Where I ask God numerous times, God, I just need you to help me get through the day. Help me get through the day. Right? When you begin to live your life this way, it drives you back to God every single day. That's God's point. I want to make sure that you're driven back to me every day. I want to make sure you're driven back to me every day. So you depend on me every day. He knows exactly how to provide for your needs. He knows that. Right? He knows your needs even before you cry out for your needs. He knows them. Right? He knows that inside and out. Through your need, He wants to reveal to you that He hears, that He's near, right? He delivers. He's waiting to see if you believe that. That's what He's waiting to hear. Do you believe that? Because remember, it's about a relationship with God, right? Because when I'm worrying, God is asking me, is He enough? Is He enough? All right, so Kelly and I, we get up there to the top of Half Dome. And the crazy thing is you can walk all the way to the edge where that drop-off was. Okay, I'm going to show you a picture of what that looks like. Let's go to the next one. Okay? So you can actually sit on the edge of that. And when we got up there, Kelly and I were both speechless. And we both said at the same time, it was worth it. It's worth it. Right? So God is asking you, God is asking me, is he worth putting trust and faith in? And he knows if you put your trust in me, when you're in that worry forest, you refocus on the one who hears and cares and provides. And you remember, I'm going to give you what you need today. You're going to be able to make it through the day. All right, let's stand. We're going to sing this last song together. Those of you on Facebook, thank you so much for being with us tonight and being a part of us. We love our Facebook family out there. Thank you so much for joining us, and want to encourage you guys to live this out this week. All right? We'll see you guys next week. Have a good day.